Hi, this is George Alger, and welcome to another segment of Our Ventura TV. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about the early years of agriculture in Ventura County. And our guest expert today is John Krist, who is the CEO of the Farm Bureau of Ventura County. Welcome, John.
Thank you, George. Well, good to be here.
Yeah, so this is a big topic. How would we even open this up?
It is a big topic. You know, agriculture has a very long history in Ventura County. It's really intimately interwoven with the history of Ventura County and the development of its culture, the environment. So what I would like to do is just start at the beginning. It's always a good place to start. So if we look back, the arrival of agriculture in Ventura County coincides with the arrival of San Buenaventura Mission, the establishment of the mission in 1782. Prior to that time, the folks who lived here had a very sophisticated culture, the Chumash, but they were hunter-gatherers. They didn't cultivate crops. But when the mission was established, it had to be a self-sustaining settlement from the get-go. So those settlers, as they came up here, they brought everything they needed to feed themselves. So they planted enormous gardens, grain fields, and all that stuff. So that's the first time we see cultivated crops in Ventura County, right back in the 18th century. But if we look at the development of true commercial agriculture, people raising crops for other than subsistence, for commercial sale, we have to look to the post-Civil War period, so the 1860s roughly, 1860s, 1870s. That's when the population of Ventura County really starts to grow, and many of those early settlers were farmers.
In fact, John, just to interrupt you here for one sec, do you happen to know why the population was growing so fast? Was oil already discovered at this point?
No, oil came after.
Okay.
Ag was first.
Okay.
Basically, people, we have a lot of immigration from the East Coast coming out here. Part of it is, a lot of people came to California for the gold rush, didn't make it there, and then they fanned out across the state to find other ways of making a living. And Ventura County has many terrific natural advantages that make it a wonderful place to farm. We have an abundant local water supply. We have great soils. What we have that really makes a difference is our climate. You can grow crops in Ventura County year-round. Every day of the year, something's getting picked or planted, which for folks who emigrated here from Connecticut, that's a welcome change.
Yeah.
So we see a lot of rapid expansion in the late 1800s, 1880, 1890. You look at the census data, and the number of farms and the acreage in farming is doubling each 10 years. And a lot of these are fairly small, but really what they're growing at that time is grain. So Ventura County's agricultural history is one of constant evolution. One crop becomes very popular. Everybody's growing it, and over time, market changes make that less profitable, and people start looking for new opportunities. So what's the next crop going to be? But in the late 19th century, California was a world grain powerhouse. We produced a lot of grain here.
And was it actually being exported?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so Ventura County was part of that. But when we get toward the end of that century, there was tremendous increase in grain production in Canada and Russia, and the global grain market collapsed essentially. So our growers weren't able to make money, so they started experimenting with different crops. Of course, one that a lot of people are probably familiar with if they've been around Ventura County for very long was the Lima Bean. This was the Lima Bean capital of the world at one time. If you look at the peak year of production, which was 1920, we had about 120,000 acres planted in lima beans in Ventura County. That's more than all the agricultural acreage we have today.
Wow.
So it was just nothing but beans out there, which is pretty interesting. Of course, we don't grow much of that anymore, and that's again part of that trajectory where one crop rises to prominence, eventually declines, and something else takes its place. One of those things that came on was sugar beets. So once upon a time, granulated sugar did not come from cane. Most of it came from sugar beets, which are these huge, really crazy looking, they look like blocks of wood almost. They don't look like the classic beet when you think of a beet. A couple of local growers thought this might be a good crop for Ventura County, so they planted some experimental plots and invited a well-known builder and owner of sugar beet refineries, Henry Oxnard, to the region, and he looked at the quality of the beets that the local growers had been experimenting with and said, yes, that has commercial value. So Henry and his brothers built beet sugar refinery on the old Colonia Rancho, and the labor camp that grew up around that eventually became what we know today as the city of Oxnard.
What year are we talking now?
This is in the 20s.
Okay.
And that plant was in operation until 1959. It was at one point the second largest beet sugar refinery in the nation. So we have no sugar beets, but we have the legacy of the beet era in the name of the largest city in the Ventura County. Then, so we keep looking in the 30s, the 40s, the crop mix starts becoming it would be a lot more familiar to us today. We see rise to prominence of fruits, lemons particularly. Turns out, who knew, Ventura County is one of the best places on planet Earth to grow lemons. We grow today, California grows about 90% of the U.S. lemon crop, and nearly half of that is produced right here in Ventura County. We're the number one lemon producing county in the nation. So, but oranges, citrus, eventually avocados, and then we see a lot of vegetable production, and moving on into the more modern era where we see berries and things like that coming in. So I would say today the agriculture we see when we travel around Ventura County is probably more diverse than it's ever been in its history. The number of different commercial crops we have, there are well over 100 of them. But it's really heavily focused on the stuff that we do really well here in Ventura County. So we have about 95,000 irrigated acres in Ventura County, which is nearly equal to the number of urbanized acres we have in Ventura County. And with all that diversity, we have just 4 crops that account for more than half of that irrigated acreage. Lemons, avocados, strawberries, and celery, of all things. Celery is a big, steady performer for us.
Is strawberry number one?
It is, in terms of gross value. In terms of acreage, avocados cover the most ground. That's the biggest single thing, with lemons a little bit behind that, and then berries, and then celery. And celery's been just super stable, almost no change in the acreage for 20 years. It's just a really, really consistent performer.
Do you happen to know when oil was discovered?
That I can't remember exactly.
Okay.
It was early 1900s, if I'm remembering correctly. But
so in the history of agriculture, was there a point when there was any type of competition over land because oil interests were also desiring the land?
In some cases, those turned out to be complementary. We have a number of big properties around the county that have both agriculture and oil extraction on them. And some of them, it's like nothing makes your front 50 acres profitable like having your back 50 acres with oil wells on it. So income diversification makes possible some things that would be tough otherwise. But no, it's never really been in competition. We have a couple of distinct growing regions in Ventura County, lots of different microclimates, but basically you can break them down into the valleys. So we have the Santa Clara River Valley, which has historically been mostly tree crops down there, citrus and avocados. Increasingly in the last few years, we've seen some of that ground turned over to vegetable and berry production. Again, diversification is a key to survival for a lot of growers. We have other valleys such as the Las Posas and Pleasant valleys, which also have a lot of citrus and avocado production as well as vegetable. And then we have the Oxnard Plain, where more than half of our irrigated acreage is out there on that beautiful flat ground near the ocean, where the temperature is really moderate year-round. And that's vegetable and berry world out there. That's primarily what's grown there.
And when did that start? When did it become really? When did berries become prominent in that?
Berries became the number one crop in 2001. So it's a relatively recent, but it is number one by far. To me, one of the interesting quirks of recent history. So the most valuable crop in terms of gross value, again, this is not net return to growers, is strawberries. The number 2 crop in terms of value, right now lemons, and just behind it is raspberries. Nearly $200 million a year worth of production of raspberries. And if you go back to 2001, which is not that long ago, we didn't grow any raspberries in Ventura County. So this is a crop that just has exploded and become a very good performer again in our mix. took a while for growers to find the right varieties and figure out how to grow them the right way. But they're doing a good job with that.
Okay. So we're kind of running out of time here, but I'm wondering from the perspective of those of us who live in the urban areas and just observe all the farmland, okay, and I kind of admire it and respect it. But the land would be very valuable in terms of development, I guess. All right. So just could you just comment on the the realities of agricultural land versus the interest in more land for people?
Right. Well, Ventura County has a very long history of being very careful about the way it grows, the way where urban development is funneled. And I got to hand the credit to folks 50 years ago who developed what we call the guidelines for orderly development, which said Ventura County is going to be different than the rest of Southern California. We're going to leave space between our cities, and that space is going to be occupied by farms. And that's a pattern that we all continue to benefit from today. It's one of the things that makes Ventura County so special, is that patchwork of beautiful orchards and fields and our communities, our cities. What that pattern has done is it's really kind of effectively separated the ag land market from the urbanized land market. So we have very, very high value, very expensive agricultural ground. Some of our prime flat bearing row crop ground leases on an annual basis for as much as you could buy farmland for in the Midwest. But that clearly pales in comparison to the value of a developable parcel. And we like to see that discrepancy. We want agricultural land to be valued for its highest and best use, which we consider to be farming it, not artificially inflated by speculative value that you could attribute to, oh, maybe I could build a housing tract on this. And I think, if we hold to that way of thinking about our ag land as the precious resource that makes Ventura County the special place to live that it is, that problem won't be a problem. We'll be able to keep those farms and farming, and those growers will be able to do what they need to do, which is make a living growing crops on that land.
Well said.
Thank you.
So we're just about out of time, John. I'm wondering if there is a website that viewers can go to for more information, and if there's a summating message you'd like to convey to the viewers.
Sure. So we have a great deal of information on the Farm Bureau website, which is www.farmbureauvc.com. We have lots of information about crops and everything on there. And I think the message I like to leave people with is, look around you. This landscape that we've inherited isn't here by accident. It's a result of very deliberate choices. And we still have the responsibility to make those choices even today. So if you like being in a county where farming is everywhere, farming is viable, farming is vibrant and robust, take actions to support it. Appreciate it, but also show your support in tangible ways. Buy the products that are made here. Make sure we advocate for policies that protect it and preserve it.
Thank you very much, John.
You're very welcome, George.
This is George Alger signing off for this segment of Our Ventura TV. Until we meet again.